Why hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Evidence-Based Excellence Interviews. Today, I sat down with Mr. Paul Ashton. Paul Ashton runs the Abolish Welsh Assembly party. Now, I reached out to the Abolish Welsh Assembly party because I came across their activities on their X page, the #1 hub for free speech in the entire world, despite the fact that many Western leaders are trying to stifle that as much as possible, because I wanted to learn a little bit more about their political initiatives and the seemingly very divisive, very extreme policy that they are branding themselves on, which is the abolition of the Welsh Assembly or the Welsh Parliament, the Welsh Senedd. Why is that going to be necessary in their purview to making Wales a prosperous and great nation and possibly getting it out of the socialist tyranny that we find ourselves in and have found ourselves in for 25 years or more, for my entire lifespan or more? Despite the fact that if you ask a lot of people, they're very, very politically conservative in their values, even if they won't say that they're conservative because of the perceived connotations that that name implies, especially in a community like mine, which was predominantly a mining community back eons ago. Obviously, the name Margaret Thatcher is a very, very divisive, potentially hostile name around these parts, especially for a lot of the older generation. But you do find that when you ask people in these areas, they want to run their own business, they want to support families, they want to prosper, they want to have a good quality of life. A lot of them are conservative in their values, but they've been lumped with socialist governments for all of their lives, and the question needs to be asked why. And a good part of breaking up the socialist tyranny that we find ourselves in is broadening ourselves to political alternatives. That is why I reached out to the Abolish Welsh Assembly party to bring you guys a fresh perspective, potentially, going into the election that we have coming up in 2026 in Wales. Is going to be very, very important. We are running on perilous little time to right the course of where we are heading as a country and as a people. Make no mistake, the clock is ticking. The 11th hour is, if it's not here, it's already gone. So make no mistake, we cannot afford to be politically apathetic and to let corrupt politicians take advantage of that apathy anymore. If you want any shot at a future, any shot at prosperity, any shot at having a family in a safe and high-trust society and country, you really, really need to start paying attention. You cannot afford to sit back. At the very least, you have to broaden yourself to these increasing, or to these different political perspectives and really, really, really knuckle down and think, what does the future hold? With that, whilst we still have some semblance of free speech in socialist UK, this is my sit down with me and Mr. Paul Ashton. I hope you enjoy. Hey there, guys. Welcome back to the Evidence-Based Excellence podcast, yet again with your host, Mr. George Cresswell. And today I thought it'd be good to, again, another guest on the podcast, but we're sitting down today with Mr. Paul Ashton of the Abolish Welsh Assembly party. Now, I came across these guys on their X page and just thought that what they were saying was quite interesting with the current political landscape in the UK, and with it almost seeming like a dogma in many instances. It's good to get a wider array of opinions, and especially with something that would seemingly be so controversial as abolishing the Welsh Assembly. So I thought it'd be good to get some thoughts on that, and obviously sit down with Mr. Ashton. Thank you very much for sitting down with me, sir. If you'd just like to explain a little bit about sort of how the party got started and what sort of the goal is, and you know why ultimately we'll get into later on in the conversation, that for a positive vision of Wales, that the abolishing the Welsh Assembly is going to be good in that regard.
Well, good morning, George.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on. That's it. Yeah. Abolish the Welsh Assembly. Well, there's a word in itself, wasn't it? So when the referendum was taking place, Wales had a referendum on a form of devolved powers originally, and it was called the Welsh Assembly. Today, 26 years later, it's now called the Welsh Senate, the Welsh Parliament. So it's changed from assembly to a parliament from the original referendum. There was a second referendum for more powers, to devolve more powers from Westminster. And the whole purpose of devolving more powers was to make it locally accountable and to improve services. Well, I can tell you, after 26 years, the system's failed. Our services have gone backwards instead of forwards. So, at the moment, we have two parallel systems. So when people say we don't want to be governed by Westminster, we are governed by Westminster. We have MPs representing our local areas sitting in Westminster by the UK sovereign government. So when people say we don't want to be governed by Westminster, we already are governed by Westminster. All our taxes, defence, expenditure, all comes from Westminster, and then it is devolved to the Welsh Assembly. So, like Elon Musk, we hate bureaucracy when there's no need for bureaucracy. This was not what it was set up to be. What it was set up to be was local officials at local area concentrating on areas to improve the services to the local people. Now, after 26 years, it's just got worse and worse and worse. And now we have two bodies that actually fight one another. So they don't agree with one another. They are actually objectively against one another. They don't work. So that is some of the reasons why Abolish came about, was that the system that was promised to us at the original referendum is no longer in existence. And the system that's morphed itself on a minority turnout of 38%. 38% was the turnout for more devolved powers out of the whole population of Wales. Well, I can say to people...
Was that just for the second referendum? Can I just qualify? Was that for the second one?
That was for the second referendum. The first referendum was 50-50 on a 50% turnout, 7,000 votes in front of it. But the second referendum was a 60-40 more in powers on a 38% turnout. Now, we can talk about democracy. It's quite... We've just had the police crime commissioners elections.
Yes.
17% turnout. Now, Labour was championing that they won on a 6%, a 60% of the vote. Well, I can tell you, 60% of the vote was 17%. Is what? Is it about 8-9%?
Yeah, something like that. It's about 10. About
9%. Let's say 9%. So the decisions people are making are 9% of the population. Yeah. For the 80%, you think, oh, I can't be bothered with that. Well, just be careful. If you don't vote and use your vote, this is what happens.
I think that's where a lot of people, particularly in my generation and with people like myself who haven't known anything but devolution, that's one of the things we talked about in our initial phone call, where you mentioned that young people like myself might not have even an idea of what it was like before devolution, before these things sort of came into effect. But, a lot of people, and to myself, even though I did go out and vote in the last ones, are slowly, rather rapidly, I think, in my opinion now, which is very, very worrying, are becoming completely disillusioned with the entire system. and seeing it as, not representative of them, or not effective, not fit for purpose. It's a very, very scary time in that regard. But I appreciate what you're saying, where and a lot of people are saying it's almost like if you don't vote or don't have your say, in some ways it's like giving your voice to the other side almost.
Well, it is, but what's even worse is it might be something that you totally disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something you fundamentally disagree with, and the other side comes out with it, and you say, and you've not even had your say. I am a great believer in devolution, in voting the people. It's your democratic right. If you don't participate in it, as Vance said, democracy is dead. That's it. But the political parties don't want to engage with you and have your thought and listen to your point of view. They'd rather you not vote than vote for somebody else. So there's no incentive for the political parties to get out other than their core vote. They're not willing to have a discussion or a debate on issues of the day with the general public that disagree with them and put up they say, well, that's it. Yeah. Your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah, they seem to be doing everything almost. And I'm glad you brought up Vance, because obviously he gave the speech in Germany a couple of days ago. And it seemed that rather than people being aware and taking note of the problems he was trying to bring up, and the main point that he was trying to bring up was the threat that free speech is under, that all of the leaders, or particularly from what I'm seeing, mostly on the left, is more so concerned about what he said rather than what he's trying to bring to the table. And people were making a lot of memes about it, saying JD Vance makes speech about free speech being under attack, and they're trying to censor it. The pro-censorship crowd are trying to censor it. So it almost seems as though, like, everything they're trying to do is to stifle that discussion. It's almost giving you the impression, or giving you the idea, that these ideas that they're trying to bring forward are not going to hold up to scrutiny.
Well, yes, and everything's got to hold up to scrutiny. It's like devolution now. Devolution, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. If you live in North Wales, they tell you, the National Welsh Health Service. And figures are terrible. That's it, as you know, for waiting lists and that. But what they don't tell you is that if you have a major injury in North Wales, the whole of North Wales, so let's say if you're in Carmarthen, Anglesey, or anything like that. But if you have a major trauma incident, you get taken to Stoke Hospital in England, because that is the major trauma centre. There isn't a major trauma centre in Glenclwyd or Bangor or Wrexham. But if you have a major trauma incident in the whole of North Wales, you're taken to Stoke.
That's shocking.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, the people in Powys and Mid Wales, they don't have an accident and emergency hospital. They are taken to Shrewsbury and Telford.
In the whole of Powys?
For Powys. If you look it up, yeah. But if you live in Welshpool, Newtown, in that area, you go to Shrewsbury. That's the nearest accident and emergency hospital. So when people say devolution and the Welsh NHS, yeah, they're not telling the truth. These politicians don't tell you the truth. Before devolution, and we were when our MPs represented us, we had the Welsh Secretary of State and a small office behind it, But did you know that out of all the inward investments that came into the UK, 20% came to Wales prior to devolution?
20%
how much?
prior to devolution, right?
20% prior to devolution. That's when the MPs were standing up for their constituencies to bring them jobs, to fight for health. It's like not Mr. Kinnock now, and some Labour ones that are ministers in the Labour government in Westminster. But they can have say over the people in England on their health. But you can't have any say on the health of the people in his constituency. That's devolved to the Senate. It's crazy, the system they've set up. But going back to inward investment prior to devolution, as I said, 20% came to Wales. After devolution now, it went down to 2%. It's just come back to 5%. So after 26 years, we get less inward investment now prior to devolution. So when people say Westminster don't care about us, I turn around and say, well, under the previous system, we had more inward investment than we actually do now. Westminster don't care because they see it as being a devolved issue to Cardiff. And what has come out of Cardiff?
And by inward investment, would we say those are things that like going towards public services and all of those?
No. What I'm talking about is inward investment is jobs and manufacturing and inward investment by companies external to the UK, not the public sector.
Right. I got you.
This is proper job.
I get you. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we got any of that anymore. Like, all of the steel industry, car industry. I have conversations with my dad about this because, my dad's obviously had a long history, growing up in this country for as long as he has, and we have conversations like this all the time. I like bouncing ideas back off him, even though there's quite a lot of things we don't necessarily agree on, but it's always an educational conversation due to his experience. But he's seen it, about how steelworks, energy, the mines were all gone, all of these different things. I'm not sure if they're all directly related to one another, but the car manufacturing industry, all of these things, and we don't really have anything anymore. We barely have a high street around where I live. You know what I mean?
We've been decimated, to tell you the truth, as a country. Port Talbot has been one of the biggest modern day disasters by a UK government, both Labour and Conservative at the moment. Labour could have stopped it and turned around Tata before they closed the plant and said, no, it's a plant that we need. Well, we can see now, as Vance also said in his speech, Western Europe have deindustrialised.
Deindustrialised, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of his keys. Deindustrialised, when they should have been actually reindustrialising in modern technology and things. But at the end of the day, you will need steel. You will need power, electricity. We've become so dependent on external governments and countries to dictate the policy in the UK and in Wales. And also, I think you've
only got to ask where, and this I see it popping up on X all the time. People are asking, where do we get these wind turbine blades from? Where do we get these solar panels from? They're all coming in from external. For some reason, again, we've got to pursue all of these, in my opinion, suicidal net zero policies. Meanwhile, other countries across the world, especially one of the biggest ones at the moment for building coal power plants, China, is burning them like there's no tomorrow. So there's an incongruency there that I think people are starting to see more and more and more. But It's almost like they're trying to do
People,
it to appear virtuous, but they're importing more and more and more, and at the end of the day, we are footing the bill.
people can see the fallacy, can't they?
Mm-hmm.
They can see the fallacy with the steel. They closed ports, hold it down to say it wasn't green, and then they opened the exact same plant up in India, twice the size. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. They can see the fallacy of us closing coal power stations and gas power stations when China are building more every single day going forward. Yeah, and they will continue because they get cheap coal and from where they are, and they also have huge amounts of coal imported from Australia. Australia, they've gone green, but they will export thousands on millions of tons of coal to China, but saying, "Oh, we're green, but we can't burn it in our own country." So that is the fallacy of net zero. And emissions have increased, actually. They haven't decreased. Yeah. And they've increased mainly due to India and China. Because what we have done as Europeans, we have transferred our industrialized output to India and China.
Mm-hmm.
So everything now, if we build a wind turbine, it's not green energy. It's energy that's been spent in China. They've manufactured it, brought it all the way back to us. We stick it up and say, it's green energy. That's it. Well, these things are fallacies. And back to devolution. Devolution is a complete fallacy. Why are we paying for MSs and MPs where in England they both do the same job? It's a duplication. It's more bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy is even worse. In Shropshire, so let's say there's Shropshire, they've got an MP, but their MP is also responsible for health, education. In Wales, that's separated to another person, but you've still got the MP representing your area. I would just want one person standing up, fighting for the people in that constituency, saying, yeah, we want better skills, we want better hospitals, we want better roads, infrastructure, job. That's the purpose of the MP. Half the MPs in Wales, they haven't got hardly anything to do. Because when the debate on education in England is raging as it is at the moment, it doesn't affect any of their constituents. So this is where bureaucracy has gone mad. And then, rather than spending money on education or health, we get another 36 MSs for the Senate, increased by bureaucracy. So
Is it?
At the end of the day, this is just a gravy mill for the politicians. So our
I say
proposal
just seems like bureaucracy for the bureaucracy, you know?
Well, it is. It's bureaucracy gone mad. It's like the Welsh Assembly and the Senate is supposed to be devolved powers to improve the livelihoods of the people in Wales. Well, not giving Uganda millions of trees to plant for their green initiative and sending money abroad on other idiotic expenditure. That's what it's not designed for. And back to the extra MSs in the new election now because they've changed the boundaries and they've changed even the way we vote. So that it's going to be even interesting. But if politicians are the answer to the question, well, it must have been a stupid bloody question in the first place, really, wasn't it? Yeah? More politicians, that's it. More bureaucracy, that is the answer to the question. Well, what is the question? The question is, you've failed completely on delivering in the past 26 years.
Mm.
And we get criticised by the mainstream media saying you're anti-Welsh. Actually, we're more Welsh than the people that are representing us. Because as before devolution, we still have our culture. We still had our language. We were still proud of who we were and where we're from. We're still proud of that now. But we were part of the Union. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. But the separatists have said, if you separate, you're going to have the land of honey. Well, I'll tell you this much. If you have a land of honey and you have a serious accident in North Wales and you're separated, where's your major trauma unit going to be? Are you still going to have to use Stoke?
Mm.
Are the people in power still going to have to use Shrewsbury as their A&E? Are you going to build a new hospital in the middle of Powys? It doesn't make economic sense to put it there. We're independent. So when you have Plaid saying, oh, we want independent, I'll ask him first. First question would be, if you had a major trauma in your house in Anglesey, where would you go? A major trauma incident. There is no place in the whole of North Wales to serve it out. And
that's shocking. That's absolutely shocking.
We have different policies. You get farmers. Farmers have been crying out for the last 26 years. They've been dying in Wales with TB. Now there's a different rule on that invisible line in England where TB is declining. Now the policies in Wales are totally different and TB has been increasing year on year.
Is it really?
Yeah. If you look at the figures in Wales compared to England and their policies.
Shit.
So, and it's these things. I am not saying what we are saying is that we just believe that in one government they must be held accountable. At the moment, nobody's being held accountable. You've got Cardiff blaming Westminster, Westminster blaming Cardiff. What I want is somebody to be. What we want is somebody to be held accountable locally, and if they are not delivering for the people in that area, they should be voted out. If them policies are not working for that people, that democracy should come in. At the moment, they just blame one another. If you go onto Twitter, a local Labour MP is criticising the Welsh, his Labour MS and the Welsh government on how bad health is in his area and how it's a disaster. Now, how can you have the local MP and the MS representing the same political party blaming each other?
Just doesn't bode well for the people who are ultimately the subject of these people's decisions or anything like that. The people who these individuals are elected to represent are the ones that are going to ultimately suffer from whether it's negligence, whether it's incompetence, whatever it may be. It's their representatives or the people they represent rather that are going to suffer for it. Like you said, we're North Wales hasn't got an emergency trauma clinic or something like that, and they're too busy fighting each other to try and sort it out. Depressing.
But it is depressing. But so we get criticised being called right wing. So when the Conservatives were in power, we run on the Abolish that said no, the devolved powers should go back to Westminster, and we're far right. Yeah, we're classed as far right. Now,
who isn't classed as far right nowadays?
Yeah, that's right. But Labour are in government now, and we're still calling on the same thing. We're saying devolution. This method of devolution has completely failed. So we're saying give the powers back to Westminster, and Labour take control of the health service and the education in Wales. They may make it even worse. We don't know. That's it. Whatever your political solution is, that's it. They may make it worse. But we won't have all this bureaucracy. We won't have Westminster saying, well, I'll give you the money, but you've wasted it on something else and you've not got the same policies as us, so it's down to you. And then Welsh saying, well, we're slightly different. We need we need more money than this. You've not given us enough. You're going to have that argument going on for the next 25 to 30 years if devolution stays the same. Now, you have other political parties coming in as well. So you got Reform at the moment. They're making lots of big noises. That's it, nationally. Farage, boys, that's it. But Farage turned around and said, devolution's done, dusted, forget about it. I think that was his statement. Yeah, get over it. That's it. You have to live with it. That's it. It's not Labour that's failed. It's not devolution that's failed. It's Labour. Well,
could it be both?
Labour have only been in power because of the Liberals and Plaid backing them up. Now, under proportional representation, that might be the same way. Reform might get enough votes, but they'll have to go into coalition with somebody because that's the way the new voting system works. But Reform have not given us one policy for Wales. And they talk about immigration. Yeah, fine. But that policy is not devolved.
Mm-hmm.
That policy is made by the government in Westminster. They talk about other things as well, defence. But all what Reform are talking about is non-devolved issues. When is somebody going to pin Reform down and say to them, right, our health service is on its knees? Reform's a quite interesting party, really. They've come out of nowhere the last few years. The interesting one was the recent local by-election, council election that everybody's talking about. Again, a very poor turnout for the people. What was it? 24% turnout. So out of that 24%, Reform got 47% of the votes. Labour came in second. This is just for county council seat. So you look at the result and think, well, that's a really good result for Reform. But the question was, why wasn't there no Conservative standing? There's no Plaid candidate standing either. So that result really is just to show that the people of Wales are more conservative-minded, leaning to the right than they are to the left, which has always been the way of Wales. We've always been a right-leaning, conservative population, but we've always ended up with a socialist government. And you can say the same with the SNP in Scotland and the Unionists. The SNP do well, but the Unionist vote in Scotland is split. Now, if you split one section of society into group and then keep one section unity, you'll always have the disparity going forward in representation. So, yes, the next elections are going to be interesting because, one, you're not going to be voting for an individual. You're going to be voting for a party. The first time in Wales, you no longer have a local representative accountable to yourselves. It'll be somebody on a list that's been agreed by the party, and they're going to be your representative. So they won't be out canvassing in their name. You're going to be canvassing on a party. So your next election will be, most probably list the parties now. Forgive me if I forget any of them. You're going to have Labour, you're going to have Conservatives, you're going to have Plaid, you're going to have Reform, you're going to have the Liberals.
The Communists?
You're going to have all. Yeah, you might have the odd communist. That's it. I think GLAD is going to be a new party as well. Might be standing candidates, and Abolish as well. And we're going to be on the top of the list. That's it. And our policy is simple. We just want to close this place down. We just want to get rid of this bureaucracy. We want somebody accountable, not to blame somebody else. Accountability and responsibility is what two big words. But you try and pin that down on a politician. You're accountable for your actions, the way you vote, the laws you bring in. Yeah, and you're responsible for the delivery as well. But they always turn around and say it's not our fault. It's always somebody.
No, it's good. It's good because it takes a lot of people don't want to put that responsibility and accountability at the front. And obviously, if you're putting that as the front of your, policy in a way, then you're showing people as well that you would expect to be held to that standard. And that ultimately that's what the example should be. It's like we brought them up earlier. Obviously, Trump and Vance, they're being held to a very, very high standard, but ultimately that's what they're being expected to, and that's what they've brought forward, and that's why you've got them going in, auditing the IRS. They look at the Department of Education, all of these things, and it's refreshing to see politicians actually doing what they were voted in to do instead of seemingly the exact opposite.
The easiest way to, as they said on a sitcom years ago, if you want to delay something, have a public inquiry. You can kick the can down the road for 10 years and not come up with anything. At the moment, the whole country is lacking a vision and a leadership of where we're going and what we want to be.
I see that, absolutely.
The whole country, that's it, whether you're in Scotland, Ireland, England, wherever, that's it, the whole country. There is not that vision of what we want. And until somebody comes up and says, this is the vision, this is how we're going to get there, it might be a hard slog. This is it, but these are the things we need to do. But politicians just lie to you. That's it. That's it. They'll kiss the baby and steal its lollipop at the same time. That's a politician. Famous quote that. So, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's the people that have the voice. And what worries me in the next election is people are so despondent that they just won't vote. Turnout at the Senate elections has never been over 50%, less than 50%. They cheered 47% at the last Senate elections. Well, that's 1 in 2, isn't it? So if you just closed me down and said, there you go. But at the end of the day, if you want democracy, you've got to go out there and have your say, and you have to vote on whatever you believe in. People might come around and say, he's talking a load of rubbish. That's it. That's their opinion. Our mission is, that's it, to say to the people, this could be better. And for people that haven't been around to see what it was like before devolution, yeah, it was rough. Yeah, we deindustrialised. We got rid of the steel in Wales. We got rid of our coal. But we adapted. That 20%, we were adapting into new industries. If you can't adapt as a society with modern technology going forward, then as a society, you will die.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're not adapting. That's it. We're not adapting. But then you need places like Port Talbot to actually produce the raw material. Yeah, we need steel. We don't need to import steel from India or China. We need steel here in the United Kingdom.
So the deindustrialization has been one of the most damaging things, I think, on a countrywide scale. This happened.
Yes, but we also need the modern infrastructure as well. Coming in, AI, and move forward. The thing about the UK prior to the deindustrialization was we were at the forefront of innovation. Let's look back. Nuclear energy. The UK was the forefront of it. Now we'll buy a power station off France and get somebody else to build it.
Nobody wants France.
Where are the days where we were the leaders? We're no longer the leaders anymore. Because the infrastructure is not there to make us the leaders anymore. And the mindset is not there to make us the leaders anymore.
I think I'm glad you brought up that point about mindset, because there was one thing I wanted to ask you just from when you said, in your peer review, one of the things you have to do is get out and vote. And to that extent, I do agree. I was going to ask you, what would you say to people who've been in a position that was similar to mine sort of around the last general election cycle, where they just felt, as you said, despondent or demoralized, or just feeling that their voice didn't really mean anything because they didn't think it was going to make a difference? What would you say to those people, like maybe even young people such as myself, that really don't feel as though that vote means anything for them?
What I say to the young people is politics is complicated. Oh, that's it. Don't be tribal. look at something that you're passionate about. If you believe in the net zero, green environment, that's it, and you are passionate and that's your number one policy, yeah, go with your vote. Don't listen to anybody that says your vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, that is the biggest con going. Politicians don't want engaged people in democracy because if you're engaged, they have to listen to what you say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. They don't want you to be engaged. All they want is their core supporters that believe through thick and thin, this is the way forward. Yeah. You heard the story. Well, my father voted for Labour, my grandfather voted for Labour, and I'll vote for Labour. That's it. What's their policies? Yeah. What are they going to do for you? Do you agree with the policies? Same with any political party. What's their policies? What are they going to do? How are they going to make your life better?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's straightforward. I want somebody that's going to, one, deliver a strong economy for my grandchildren. So, one, they've got good services. So, when we do have the services, I want them to be fit for purpose. We haven't got an NHS fit for purpose. Our education system's not fit for purpose. That's it. Our higher education system now seems not fit for purpose.
Agreed.
But them policies have a direct impact on everybody and delivery.
Absolutely.
So when you look at something, sometimes you might say, that is my number one priority. But when you look at the overall package of another party, yeah, I could put that one on the back burner and it could still be my number one priority. But I'll take that package. So it's the package that's being put forward to you.
Yeah,
remember,
go on.
Remember, whatever package they put forward to you, they'll bloody lie about it and not deliver it. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that is the fallout about it. They will not deliver for what you've elected them to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because this conversation we have all the time around my parts in particular, where friends and family and stuff like that. I'm also see it with regards to the older generation in my community, so to speak, like my mum and dad's friends, where they openly say they'll just never vote Conservative because one of them literally says they'll never vote Conservative because my dad would come back from the grave and kill me. So there's like that tribal element you mentioned, whereas now I'm seeing this more in the younger generation, the younger voices in the community. They're looking at things now and they're cracking jokes like, oh yeah, let's vote for Labour because Nan did. You know what I mean? And now people are starting to switch on a little bit more and actually focus on the thing which I've always thought is the most important point, which is the actual things they say they're going to do.
That's it. Now, so back to Abolish. We've had a good discussion now. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a bit more about what the vision is.
Our policy is a one-liner, and people say, "Oh, well, if I get interviewed on mainstream media, you say, well, we know what your policy is. You just want to get rid of it, yeah. You don't think it works." And he's saying, there's nothing else to that, is there? But that's one huge policy. That one policy, yeah, affects everything.
I was about to say, there's many things that splinter off from that.
Yeah, right. But then you say, right, so what if we did get away with it? We'd be back to one National Health Service. Yeah. So one UK National Health Service. So, okay, the major trauma unit for Wales is in Stoke. So what? If you have a major trauma, you get put in a helicopter and you go to Stoke. We haven't got the bureaucracy of a tier of management in the Welsh NHS. We just got one NHS. We save millions.
Mm.
We've got Dodge Wales at the moment, which is a real good site on X, highlighting waste. If anybody wants to follow, it's very good.
Oh, is that the Department of Government Efficiency account?
Yeah. An X account. It's really good, that. You follow that and you think, yeah, we can see where the millions are going. Yeah. But if you criticise Welsh Government, you're not being that. But let's get back to it. So you got the NHS. You got education. Education's always been curriculum, doing things different. We got the universities. Yeah. The big one that the nationalists will always throw at Abolish is that if you get rid of the Welsh Assembly, you get rid of the Welsh language. This has been always the argument of the separatists. If we don't have that, our Welsh language will be declined. Well, we've seen the Welsh government's targets, and they haven't been increasing. In fact, in some of the rural areas, they're decreasing. And they say, well, why are they decreasing? Well, I'll tell you why they're decreasing. Because if you're young, about your age, there's no work. Yeah, the first thing you're going to do is actually go and find a job further afield. You'll go to university further afield if there's no good universities there. So if you want to go to the best universities in the country, it's either Oxford or Cambridge. Yeah. There's no discounting. If anybody says, so they're the top universities. But how many children or young people in Wales are getting the opportunity to go to Oxford and Cambridge? Very few. So they'll go further afield. They'll go to Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool, London, wherever. Years ago, we had some of the leading academics coming out of Wales. We don't hear about that anymore. We've lost, I can say, the education system in this country has been broken. Because education was sold that everybody can go to university. Everybody get a degree and everybody get a good job. That was the Labour selling there. They didn't tell you that you're going to be a hawk for the rest of your life if you go to university. Yeah. In my days, university was selective. It was for the brainiest kids in the class. Yeah. The ones that stood out. Yeah, the rest of us, we went to either Polytechnic or we went and did skill work or semi-skilled work or manual work, depending on your academic achievements or whatever. That's it. To push everybody down the line of you can be a rocket scientist. Well, you can't be a rocket scientist. Not everybody's designed to be Elon Musk. Elon Musk is 1 in a million. Well, 1 in a billion, I would say, that type of person comes along. Now, but you give them with what you're given. And sometimes you have the breaks go for you and go against you. But you've got to make the best of it out of life. And it's the same in Wales. That's it. we could do so much better. Like the people, a teacher said to me once, teaching is easy. It's all the other rubbish that we've got to do that's the hard stuff. If you take away the other stuff, that's it. Teaching is really easy. And the Welsh Government saying we're putting more money into schools. Yeah, well, at the end of the day, they might be. But what they're not telling you is school classes are going up. Teaching assistants are being cut. Because whatever money they give, it's not ring-fenced to the local authorities. The local authorities set the budget for the education system. So it's your councils that say, well, we haven't had enough money off the Welsh Government. Therefore, we've got to make a 5% efficiency cut or 10%, or we're closing this school and making your classes bigger. So when you hear these bigger headlines, what's happening on the ground is not tallying with what the politicians are telling you.
Running theme there. Things not being as the way the politicians say is a running theme.
Yeah, there is a running theme. But mainstream media will not challenge the politicians on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why did it take an ITV Welsh reporter to find out that they were teaching the kids the incorrect method of reading in Wales? They weren't teaching phonics. Phonics is the given for reading. And it took an ITV reporter to go into the schools and say, well, hang on, you're not even teaching phonics to the kids. No wonder they can't read.
Oh, God.
It wasn't Ofsted. It's not Ofsted. I've forgot the name of the Welsh Welsh school inspector. It wasn't them. It wasn't a opposition party, Plaid Cymru, or the Conservatives or Liberals, actually going out and visiting the school and scratching their heads and going, why isn't this working? Why has it come down to actual reporters when the story gets so big? It takes the reporter to actually go in and say, what's actually happening?
And that just makes it all the more embarrassing and concerning that you wonder why, like, the standards agency or whoever it is, like, I can't remember the name of them offhand either, but like, the educational board or whoever's responsible for upkeep of standards, whatever it is, to have caught that a long time ago. The fact that like even a whiff of it has made its way out into like the public domain in a way, so that an ITV journalist, whoever it is, can get hold of it or get whiff of what's going on, and then they are the one that scoops it and I don't know if expose is the right word, but brings it to light. Makes you wonder what the standards assurance were doing.
Yeah, but somebody taught me something once. If you want to know what's happening, yeah, don't get a bunch of managers sitting round a table. Just go and look. Go and see for yourself. How many of these politicians have actually gone and looked and seen for themselves what's happening, what's going wrong, and how they can put it right? Especially,
you'd probably be able to count them on one hand.
So, our policy is really that if you're going to start again to try and fix things, first things you need is a good, firm foundation. And we believe the Constitution of the United Kingdom is actually, the foundations are falling apart. The house is subsiding. Yeah, the roofs are caving in. There's no roof on the top, and that's where we are as a nation. That's my summing up as a person. So the first thing you need to do, if you want to save it, is you need to do the foundations. And the foundations of any system is your constitution and democracy, how it works. So it might be, I'll throw this out to you. That's it. And people won't like it. I think that every body in the United Kingdom should be required to vote. Even if they have the box at the bottom that says none of the above. They should be required to vote. It's a democracy. And now people say, oh, you're taking over our rights. Well, I think everybody should have their say. Nobody should be, at the end of election, be able to turn around and say, well, the turnout was poor, this was bad, we didn't get the vote because of this or whatever. Then they only had a small proportion of the vote. That's it. Now everybody votes. You do it in Australia, you do it in other countries around the world, mandatory voting.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Australia and other places. I didn't know that.
If you looked at Australia, it's a legal requirement for you to go and do your democratic duty and vote. And there's other countries as well. I don't know what you think of that. Well, that's something that I personally believe in. Not that the party doesn't believe in it in other things as well.
I think when you mentioned, go on.
We're a party of people from various political persuasions. Yeah, we've got different thoughts on different things, but we've got one thing that devolution's failed.
Glad you
in its present form.
I'm glad you brought that point up, though. Go on. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No, go.
Oh, I was just going to ask you. You mentioned, obviously, I like to hear people out until they fully finish their point before I say whether I agree or disagree with something. So you brought up that point where you said it could be none of the above or something like that. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's, it's not like you're trying to force somebody into making a choice that they actually don't want to make, and you're at least saying, look, if you don't like any of these people, you can say that, but just please say it so that we have that information. At the end of the day, and this is me coming from a scientific background as well, if you have more data points, typically the better. But the thing I was going to say is what you mentioned then was that you're a party from all different sort of political affiliations, and that when you talk to the mainstream media, who will take delight in calling anybody who doesn't hold a party line as far right and these kinds of things. If you just had to give like a broad classification, if you could, that is, on where sort of Abolish, based on its policies and based on how it would sort of manifest, would tend to fall, do you think it would be somewhere in the center, or do you think it would be stereotypically more right, more left, or is there really no way to classify it?
I think I think the way you would classify it would be common sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Policies that actually work and deliver for the people. So people say, well, you might not get in, but you'll be in there, and you've only got one policy. What would you do if you actually got seats in the Senate? Well, hopefully we could turn around and say we got enough seats, and we close it down and say, there you go, power's back, reset. But if we didn't manage to do that, people turn around and say, well, what are you going to vote on? And I turn around and say, common sense policies. Whoever puts a policy forward that actually benefits the people of Wales. If it benefits the people of Wales, then, yeah, we'll be behind it 100%. If it doesn't benefit the people of Wales, they'll turn around and say, no, this is a load of rubbish. It doesn't matter what political party you're from. That's it. It doesn't matter. It's the policy It's what it's going to deliver for the people of Wales.
No, absolutely. And
does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I suppose then it would be a lot longer form conversation into the individual specifics and stuff like that. In terms of one thing you mentioned before, where the I'll call them the separatists. I don't really like. I like you use that term. I don't like really calling them the nationalists, because Plaid Cymru and stuff like that, the way they strike me at least, is that they want to separate Wales from the rest of the Union, but then throw us straight back into being in with Europe and the European Union and that bureaucracy. And to me, at least, that doesn't stand out as very nationalistic in my opinion, in my purview at least. It strikes me more as transferring the bureaucracy from one to another, which is not very nationalistic in my opinion. But how important, but yeah, how important do you think it is for Wales to preserve its culture, whether that's its norms, its traditions, its languages, shared sense of religion, maybe? How important do you think that is?
It's very important. It's absolutely very important. That's it. Let's talk about Welsh language. Yeah, Welsh language is a beautiful language. Half my family speaks Welsh language, half of them don't. Depending on your upbringing of your parents and where you live. Some people say if you live in Wales, everybody should speak Welsh. Well, the national language for Wales is everybody speaks English. That's the fact. 100% people speak English. Yeah, and I think I forgot what the percentage is now. About 20% speak Welsh. We got the Welsh medium schools that promote it. One of the biggest issues to Welsh medium schools is that the children go to the Welsh medium schools speaking Welsh all day. They come home and the parents only speak English. So it reverts back. But they're learning to speak Welsh, so they've got the dual language. I believe in promoting the Welsh language, yeah. But what I don't believe in is politicising the Welsh language. Plaid have taken over the Welsh language as their own political base mark. If you speak Welsh, you got to vote Plaid. That's it. It's as simple as that. I totally disagree with that. If you speak Welsh, you're from a Welsh-speaking community. That's it, and you promote it. But in Ceredigion, they have the Welsh-speaking communities, but they closed the local primary school. So you go to a primary school somewhere different, and things like that. The policies are not tying in, and from my feeling is that's it. The Welsh language has been politicised. It's been used as a political by the main parties, Labour and Plaid. They say, "Oh, if you don't vote for us, the Welsh language is going to go." If enough people are passionate about the Welsh language and speak the Welsh language will never die. It's the same as Christianity. How many people go to church now? And they say they're Christian.
From what I can see, it is rising back up again. From what I've seen on a national scale,
what I'm seeing, it is, but it's died off to hardly the amount of people that actually go to church on a Sunday. That's it. And the churches are closing. They say, "What a terrible thing! The church is closing." Same as the chapels. How many chapels are left now in Wales?
To my great regret, all the way through my younger years, through my adolescence, I never went. To my great regret.
Yes, that's it. And a lot of people don't go to church. That's it. And they don't go to chapel, and then they say when the chapel's taken down, "Oh, what a beautiful building," whatever. If you want something, you got to participate in it. It's the same as democracy. If you don't participate in it, at the end of the day, it'll just fail. And my biggest worry about the next elections is the turnout. engagement, people's being engaged. If you don't go out and vote, even if it's in a local election or council election or community elections, if you don't vote, you don't have a say. And if you don't have a say, don't moan for what you've got.
Well, Paul, that's certainly a lot there that I've got to go on. This has been really, really good. I'm just noticing, though, a timer has just appeared in my top right-hand corner. I didn't see it last time, but it's saying we got a remaining meeting time of just 2 minutes. So is there anything... I've got more than enough there that I wanted to ask you. This has been amazing. Got any sort of final remarks you'd like to leave with the listeners or the watchers, and then obviously where they can find you if they have listened to something which you've said and they found it really interesting and they'd like to know more about what you do, where they can find you, any websites and social medias and stuff like that, and any last thoughts you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, we're on X. We've got a Facebook account, just Abolish the Welsh Assembly. We've also got the website. So if you're interested in what we're thinking, just pay us a visit or drop us a comment. But at the end of the day, if you don't engage, you don't have a say. Whatever you think, however things get bad, you don't have a say. But if you do have a say, you can change things. But it's down to you. Everybody has the right to have a say. Free speech is not dead in the UK. Because free speech is, you put an X in the box and you say, that's for me and that isn't for me.
Yeah, so guys,
Cheers,
make sure you
George.
have... That's right. Make sure you have your say, guys, and obviously we make sure we keep free speech alive in the UK, because it is certainly under threat. People are trying to get rid of it, but we need to make sure that obviously it doesn't go away. And maybe that's going to come from casting that X in one of the boxes at the ballot box when the time comes. Paul, thank you so much for this. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, George. That's brilliant.
All the best to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My conversation with Mr. Paul Ashton. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it valuable. But do let me know on social media, in the comments, things that you may agree with, things that you may disagree with, and points that you may have to add to the discussion, whether they're in support of Paul's worldview or whether they're in refutation of it, and why. Add to the discourse in a positive way. Let us benefit from your input and from the evidence that you'll put forward for your viewpoint. In that way, we all benefit and we can all make the best decisions going into what is a very, very important election year in 2026. But ultimately, my parting question to you guys is this: do you think that we need to abolish the Welsh Assembly? Have a little think about it and let me know in the comments and on social media. Thank you very much. As always, guys, hope to hear from you soon. All the best. And as always, Godspeed.